Good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. I am Gunnar Rios, and welcome to another episode of the Logical Gamers podcast. I'm joined here tonight by Mr. Blanca Kong, Mr. Esoteric, and
Yep.
Mr. Hado Wolf. And today is going to be hopefully a interesting topic. It's kind of a big-headed one. It's not our usual off-the-cuff kind of pieces that we do about the gaming industry. So this one's kind of a philosophical piece. So I was looking at a video. Um, by Sargon of Akkad. Some of you may know him, some of you might not. But the video was about the death of the orc, which kind of piqued my interest. I was like, what do we mean? I kind of knew where it was going, but when I watched the video, I was like, you know what? This might make a pretty good topic because most of us, all of us here, have some varying RPG formula. Even though it's not tabletop, which was the focus of his video, we've all played various games, read various pieces of media, and watched various movies that had your titular bad guy. And the crux of the Sargon video was about how D&D has basically removed orcs as a enemy race in the game, made them playable, and they want to kind of stray away from that because of perceived inequality and racism. So, before we get into the overall topic, we usually don't do this, but I figured why not? Just a warning for anybody who's sensitive to these type of topics. We will more than likely be discussing race, culture, and the concepts of good and evil, and maybe a little sprinkle of politics because, like it or not, this whole orc thing
It's
is
because of
because modern.
politics.
Yes.
Mm.
So if that's a thing you don't want to listen to, you don't want to hear, you don't like, I get it. It's going to be in our lives whether we like it or not. Do you? But just throwing that warning out there. Now, with that warning being said, I'll give my initial thought about the overall topic, and then I will pass it to you, gentlemen, and you will give me your overarching thoughts, and then we can get into the nitty gritty of things. So, Uh, I'm mostly a Japanese RPG, but I also like Western RPGs as well. I'm an RPG guy, a role-playing guy. Never really got into D&D because that was just pretty much before my time. D&D came out when I wasn't even out of the womb yet, and I just never got into it. But I have kind of delved into D&D a little bit, very little bit, with the my biggest exploration being Baldur's Gate 3. That's a D&D game based off the franchise. So I got to learn D&D from that, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." I could see myself if I had a dedicated group. I wouldn't mind playing an actual tabletop session of D&D. So D&D always had orcs, right? Orcs were the bad guys. They were the titular. They were evil for evil's sake. They killed you. They killed your mom. They killed your dad. They kill anything that moved that isn't an orc. And because I've always played RPGs always had bad guys. Final Fantasy had bad guys. They were goblins and orcs and beastmen tribes, they would call them. They were your bad guys. They wanted to destroy your world, destroy your civilization, to fight back against them and kill them, quite frankly. There was no real negotiation because beastmen and orcs didn't really have the capacity for negotiations. So when I saw this video and other articles about how D&D was removing orcs as an opponent because of perceived racism, specifically perceived racism against the African American community, I was very, very stunned because I'm like, wait, what? Who looks in an orc and sees a black guy? I, I never did that because I always saw an orc as a fantasy creature that had nothing to do with the real world. But apparently, this is a prevalent issue with, I'm going to be very charitable and say modern people lacking certain cognitive skills, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, so apparently orcs are racist and they're black people. I don't know how we got here, but we're currently here. So much so that D&D has removed them from their opponents list, and they are
I'm
now a
laughing.
playable
You're
race.
making me laugh.
I'm sorry, but it's funny. I'm sorry. I mean,
It's
I couldn't
stupid.
hold
It's
it in.
stupid.
Whatever.
So anyway, if you're not laughing, you're crying. So I get you. Um, So, okay, that's the initial dirty topic. I have notes. We'll go through those notes. I'm sure some of you guys have things you jotted down or just things that are coming to you as they go. This is kind of going to be an off the cuff topic. I'm going to bring in some sci fi elements into this because orcs aren't only in the fantasy realm, they're also in the sci fi realm. And we're going to talk about video games because we've all played video games and that's what our channel focuses on. So, we'll get into all of it. So, anyway, that's my initial intro and my spiel. Gentlemen, who wants to delve into the quagmire that is racial politics in our fantasy?
So I'll go. So I watched the video twice because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. And excuse me, if I sound kind of like raspier or different than usual, it's because I'm getting over a flu,
Yeah.
which is why I wasn't in last week's episode. I do feel better, but I'm still not 100%. I'm like at 99%. I don't know. So, excuse me, 1 second. Yeah, I had to clear my throat there. I didn't want to do that in your ears. But anyway, so the video, you basically covered it. It basically kind of went down the history of orcs and how they were basically an inherent evildoer entity in the Dungeons and Dragons universe, right? And the best example or best parallel I could think of, or that I read in the comments, a part of the same video, was zombies in like The Walking Dead or zombies in zombie movies. Zombies are inherently evil, and there's no like, there's no hope for them, right? They're just a evil and an obstacle that you have to overcome in that universe, right? That's what zombies are. There's no like, obviously there are variations. There are going to be some movies or shows that are like try to humanize zombies and make zombies like, oh, they have a soul in there, you just have to find it or whatever. But like typically zombies are just the enemy, period. They're full stop, that's it. And so orcs are kind of like the same in that universe where they're just evildoers. And Sargon, you know, he talked about the lore and stuff, and I didn't like double back and research it. I took everything he said in the video at face value. So if if he was wrong and I'm peddling wrong information, then I apologize ahead of time. I took what he said at face value because I figured he did his research. In the video, he mentions that orcs can be reasoned with, but they'll only reason with you if it benefits them in the short term, and they'll immediately backstab you. Their entire existence is just to conquer and destroy. Period. That's what they do. They will there's even infighting. Like if there's nothing to conquer, they will conquer each other. Like it's super toxic. Their existence, and they'll enslave their women and like just see them as like fucking, you know, sex toys and like breeding factories. And that's what it was. And even beta male orcs were just slaves to the alpha male orcs. It's like if you're not man enough to like, you know, compete with like the top of the top, then you're just a bitch boy who's just gonna lift rocks and like, you know, do like, you know, woman work or whatever in that universe, right? I'm not agreeing with it. I'm not saying it's good, but I'm saying that's what it was, right? And he talked about that. I only bring that up because you didn't dive into that yet, so I figured we'd just throw that out.
No, I get you. Yeah.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room of orcs or black people. I don't know where that came from. Orcs are green, first of all. They're inherently savage and not, they're humanoid in the sense in how they're formed, but they're not like, they don't have like a soul and compassion. They don't have the things that make a human. And they have like fucking tusks for teeth, and like they're really ugly and like big. Are we saying that that's what you see when you look at black people? You see these giant green fucking like disgusting savage like people? Cause that's a wild take. Like
Says a lot about the individual.
The fucking yeah, like that connection is like crazy to me. And I'm like, you know, before we started recording, I figured let me look into this a little bit, and I found a Reddit thread from 7 years ago around Elder Scrolls online, which Elder Scrolls has orcs in their lore. It's different because orcs in that universe, while they're savage, like they still have like they can be civil in the Elder Scrolls universe. So it's a little different. And apparently, this guy posted. This is the headline. I could share this with Esoteric, and he could put it in the description in case you guys want to read it.
Yeah.
This guy says a player thought I was racist for playing an orc, even though I'm not black, for a cultural appropriation. So this isn't like isolated
It's
thought process. This is kind of bled into other franchises, and like a lot of the comments are just like, who said orcs are black people? That's weird. And in Elder Scrolls lore, if you were to say there's a black race, it would be the Red Guards, who are model wise, they look like black people, but they have like the culture of like they have like Arabic like clothing, and they have like the scimitar swords and stuff. Those are the black people of that universe. Where did you get orcs from? Or dark elves? Why are dark elves black people? Because they're dark? That seems like such a low hanging fruit reason to be like, yeah, that's so it's just fucking dumb.
Yeah.
And like this is all fantasy based. This isn't real. Like, what are we talking about? It's not like blatant parallels to real life, like 50 Cent Bulletproof on PS2 and fucking Def Jam Fight for New York, which are fantastic games, but like those are direct commentary of like at the time modern black culture, and nobody has a problem with those games. I mean, I don't. I think those games are great, but like I could see there being an argument for somebody saying, well, that's a bad representation of our community. But like nobody's ever made that claim. I've never heard it. Yet we want to go and talk about D&D and Magic the Gathering and Elder Scrolls and put black people in the same box with orcs? Like what the fuck? Like where did that come from? So it's just weird to me. And it feels like people just making up issues because they have nothing better to do. And it's just bizarre to me. And it says a lot about the people with that
yes.
that made that parallel. It's like, okay, I think you're maybe revealing too many cards in your hand here. Like, and it's not looking good in your favor if that's how your mind works. So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to start with. I have more stuff to say, but I've said enough. So I'll let the other two gentlemen chime in.
Oh, all right. I guess I'll go. I think in regards to what they're trying to say, not that I agree with it, because I, for one, if for those of you who haven't seen, I am a black person, and
Holy shit.
yeah, right. You know, it's super shocking, right? Like I don't know, maybe
Whoa.
I don't.
What?
I mean, the course here.
I've known you for almost 20 years, and
Yeah,
I've never noticed.
I identify as black. Anywho, no, but in all seriousness, me being a black person, I have never constituted orcs being associated with black people. Like never, ever. I've watched Lord of the Rings. I've played games that had orcs in it, and I've never put that correlation together. Absolutely not. Now, my thoughts is okay. Yes, they look completely different. Like they don't look anywhere near compared to us. So I think what they're trying to associate Kong is not so much the aesthetic, but maybe the characteristics, the traits from what orcs do, which like associates with being primitive, which which pretty much all the negative connotations that are associated with black people in the so-called past. But then again, it's like all the things that happens in Orc Society, according to like the article that the guy referenced. I forgot his name.
Sargon.
Sargon?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sargon. Yes. Okay. All the acts that the orcs have taken or are taking in these fantasy realms have been taken from many different demographics in the past. There was always a conquest. There was always, women being perceived as objects in the past. The Romans, the Greeks, so on and so forth. There was slavery, unfortunately. So to kind of pinpoint it to black people, I find it to be really like really crazy. I you know, um, and then also he spoke about um pretty much them removing orcs from the new version of Dungeons and Dragons, and making them more like the other clans, the other races within the game. And it's like sometimes as a gamer, I I play my games to escape reality. My rationale is like I wouldn't do certain things within the society that we live in because morally speaking, it's not a good thing, which, some of our morality stems from the environment in which we live in, the society, the societal standards, and so on and so forth. Not so much us being inherently born with having these certain traits or whatnot. Um, but if I wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons and orcs was playable, I would want to play them as the way they are because it's a way for me to escape reality. It's a way for me to kind of delve into the other side of the fantasy and actually like be the bad guy. Not saying that I promote what they do with their conquest, what they do with women. I don't promote any of that whatsoever in my actual life. But if that's the lore of what they're giving us, then why can't we embrace it? It's fiction. It's fantasy. You know, playing Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. It was the main character was a black guy, legitimately a black guy. And there wasn't any rise of like, oh my god, this is a bad depiction of black people in that game. It was just a game. It was just a story in which that the creators created in order for us to play through this particular character and their day to day and what's happening within their livelihood. So it's just really, I just find it to be really weird that it's a again, guys, I am a black person and I'm stating that this is a far stretch. And the part that killed me was when Sargon said that they went from being considered orcs to being Mexicans.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
that took
They
me
are now
out.
currently Mexican, and that's somehow not as bad.
That
That's
legitimately
somehow okay or better, and it's like,
well, I mean, which is also like, basically what they're considering is that okay, if they became Mexican, then they're less primitive, which you're still correlating black people to being primitive because the new orcs, the new style of orcs, they're more societal, they're more political in what they do. They kind of delegate with their community as well as the other communities, whereas the former was, yeah, we want to destroy everything, we want to conquer everything. Um, so I have some more stuff, but I'm gonna pass it along. But I just wanted to say like this, my take on it was like it's a far stretch. So what say you, Wolf?
I think whoever came up, or for a group of people to come up with the argument of orcs being black people, is because they realize that from the get-go, their argument is ridiculous and they needed something to help support their nonsensical, immature stupidity, period. So it's like what they call it, it's like coming up with something to help your argument win, or picking something that's just like what Kong said earlier, a low-hanging fruit to, I'm not even going to say that. It's a stupid argument. You're an idiot if you compare orcs to any kind of race of people. And in order to support your argument, because it's a losing argument, you go ahead and you're throwing something that's extremely sensitive to people to help support your point. Because in no way, shape, or form, in all my years of being into anime and video games and comic books, have I ever considered myself an orc.
And he's black
I do
too.
not identify orc, and I am black, and I do not identify orc.
You sure? You
I'm
wasn't triggered?
very positive. I am very positive.
Are you
I
telling
don't.
me, are you telling us that you don't have an inherent desire to conquer, to pillage, and to
That is the next thing that I want to talk about too. So again, the argument, that's why I say that the argument is so focused on them needing to win their point and needing a shield that's going to help defend their point. Because to compare a race of people to a fictional character that is designed to stir emotions into the fan base in a negative way to justify why they get what they get from the heroes of the media, it is it's a whole nother level of of dumb. Like I don't have another word for these people. Like stupid, dumb.
Yeah,
It,
I think
it's
that's
like
appropriate.
it falls right into their proper category, and again, so to win your argument of wanting to justify orcs as a race, you say we're black. They say they're black people, and then on top of that, you don't realize that you just pinned a whole race of people to slave masters and conquerors, which last I checked, wasn't that Mongols from back in the day? They were the slave masters, the conquerors, and the murderers, weren't they?
We got to be careful with that word, gentlemen, because we will get flagged. The grape. So
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's use grape. The grapists.
my bad, my bad.
Sure. Regardless of it, what I'm saying is the it's so it's such a distasteful um
take.
take on a whole fictional character that it's almost disgusting to even talk about or to continue to even want to talk about. And to be honest, if you are a black person defending the fact that orcs are relatively black people, then you need to get yourself checked out because that doesn't make any sense. It like cognitively speaking doesn't make sense. It doesn't, because never once did they say orcs evolved from a race of people, I don't know, from the continent of Africa. Never once it said that. Never once it said African black people in general evolved into orcs. And on top of that, the reason why orcs are, or the reason why any villain of any media is considered a villain is because they are designed to do evil things. They're designed to do that. If they weren't designed to do that, they wouldn't be villains. You wouldn't want to put them down in a story or a video game or a a um a movie.
Well,
It's
it
you wouldn't want to. They have to invoke some kind of emotion in you, specifically negative emotions, for you to say, okay, it is justified for the greater good to get rid of this entity or to get rid of this person or whatever it is. That's the purpose of why they needed a or why they created a villain for the D&D game. Why am I a wizard? What am I going to do? Just be a wizard blasting around random things just because they oppose me? But
Modern
why
D
are
and D
they
maybe.
opposing
Yeah.
you?
well
But why are they opposing you? You
well
understand
it
what I'm saying?
well it to
What's
go ahead, Wolf. I'm sorry. Finish your point.
what's the purpose of it? Like, are we talking about? Okay, let's look at it like this. Are they going to go the route of like how they designed Thanos for the Avengers movie, where he's debatably not bad, but at the end of the day, Thanos still did things that was unfavorable to what a good-natured um, organism or cognitive entity would do. He still did things that wasn't supposed to, like we would consider as like, okay, well, that's a little over the top. But his overall purpose is debatable on whether he's a villain or not. Or, I mean, some people may consider him an anti-hero, like Magneto. Some people may not consider Magneto a villain. Some people may consider him an anti-hero. But Magneto still does things that the X-Men wouldn't. do. Then you have characters like Majin Buu, who had absolutely no regards to what is positive. He had no regards to life. He had no regards to empathy. He had no regards to the care of others. I mean, the kid blew up the planet Earth the moment he went into his final form. He didn't care. So if Majin Buu had became Kid Buu when he became Kid Buu and he went over to Goku and Vegeta and he started rubbing their faces, saying everything is going to be okay, would he be considered a villain? Like, what would be the reason for them to want to continue that story in the Majin Buu arc? You have to build these emotions. That's what makes the villain the villain. That's what makes them great. Is that they build more emotions in you than the heroes.
Well, to add to that, Wolf, it can also be like you touch base with Thanos. Like, it could be the opposition of each side, right? Because a villain could be just from like based upon perspective. Like Thanos felt like what he was doing was for the good of people. You know, like let's say they mentioned it also in the video of Sargon's video where like you know the heroes are they're actually heroes because of what they're doing to the orcs, you know, because if they didn't do what they had to do and you know pretty much like kill the orcs or whatever, then the orcs would just run over them. And since we're playing from the perspective of the humans, the elves, the dwarfs, then they're considered like the heroes, and it's a matter of like perspective as well as like just some villains just being inherently evil or
Okay,
whatnot, right?
so let's do the perspective of the orcs doing what they feel they need to do to survive as a race. It's a dog eat dog world,
Yeah, that's pretty much what they are
right?
doing.
So right then and there, we just justified a whole quote unquote evil race of organisms that didn't need to be correlated to a race of people, or didn't even need to be connected to racism or prejudice or anything like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely
I
not.
mean, in the end of the day, if we're gonna go with good and evil being just a person's perspective or their own point of view of something, then the orcs can look at themselves as heroes of the world just trying to create order, right?
Well, okay, so here's the thing, right? I'm not saying that it's just that, and I do get your point. So like there are some people where based off their polar oppositions, their perspectives, one is good, one is evil. It's dependent upon like what perspective you're a part of. In this particular case with the orcs, they're just saying that they're intrinsically evil, like they're just born evil, and that like
No, they're not just born evil.
no, that's
And
what they
that's the
said.
thing.
That's what they
I
said.
know that. I know that. But what I'm saying is now I'm going based on the argument of those who want to change what orcs are, right?
Okay.
Because again, the media that I grew up in, orcs were always inherently the evil race. If they are orcs, they're bad. You got to get rid of them. But now let's use these people's arguments. So if your argument is okay, orcs is they're a race and they deserve just as much of a fair chance as the next. So, all right, are they really bad in their point of view? When an orc is born, he's born into the environment and he becomes what he is based on his environment, right? So if the orc of the pack, or the orc leader of the pack is saying, hey, hurting women, hurting other races, dominating the land around them is what we do, he becomes a product of his environment. So that's what he'll do. So is he evil at that point? Is he inherently evil at that point? Because that's like saying children are inherently evil or children are inherently good. And that's not the case, right? Because now they're black people. So are black children inherently evil? Are black children inherently good? The children are moldable, they're malleable, right? So if children are moldable, then aren't orcs moldable? They're a cognitive race.
If we're going by current D&D standards, yes, you're
Yes,
absolutely correct.
but
Because
pass no.
yeah, because current D&D made them, they took them out of the enemy book. They are no longer an enemy. You cannot encounter an orc in a dungeon. They are now a playable race. So, yes, Wolf, correct. Now an orc can be a painter, a philosopher.
Well,
They can be a
a
good
half
person.
orc. They
Yeah.
make that very clear distinction. Half orc.
Half orc. Which,
is
well,
playable.
to my
I
understanding,
thought they removed
half,
that. Yeah, they
they
removed that in
removed
the
half
game.
elves.
They eventually removed them, but according to the video, when they first introduced them as playable characters, they were half orcs,
Mm.
which is the lore purpose as to why they were playable, because they didn't have the full orc evil
Right.
gene or whatever.
But now they removed half races entirely,
Yeah.
which
Correct.
goes back to the point of how can these people see that they're not racist, because now they're basically saying you are not allowed to race mix. Stick with your own kind. But they don't see that. They see it as, no, we're the good guys. We removed half elves because they're racist. So elves need to be with elves, dwarves need to be with dwarves, and humans need to be with humans. There's no race mixing because that's racism.
Which
But they don't get it.
And I
then
have
that
an answer to Wolf's question from the video, but I'll let you make your point, and then I'll say what I have to
okay.
say.
Yeah, and you also, to add to that, like they also removed a pretty much potent part of D&D, because depending upon which race you chose determined like what your stats were. So if you were an elf, you would have like strength in
Racial
like
bonuses,
in magics or whatever. So there was racial bonuses associated with each race, and if you were to mix, you'd be able to allocate some of their strengths into your own. But then also, like to Wolf's point, Sargon, he also had some like quote here talking about like the rationalist, right? And it said the rationalist stands for independence of mind on all occasions, for thought, free from obligation to any authority save the authority of reason. His circumstances in the modern world have made him contentious. He is the enemy of authority, of prejudice, of the merely traditional, customary, or habitual. His mental attitude is at once skeptical and optimistic. Skeptical because there is no opinion, no habit, no belief, nothing so firmly rooted or so widely held that he hesitates to question it and to judge it by what he calls his reason, right? Optimistic because the rationalist never doubts the power of his reason to determine the worth of a thing, the truth of an opinion, or the propriety of an action. Moreover, he is fortified by a belief in a reason common to all mankind, a common power of rational consideration, which is ground and inspiration of argument. Besides this, which gives the rationalist a touch of intellectual equalitarianism, he is something also of an individualist, finding it difficult to believe that anyone who can think honestly and clearly will think differently from himself, right? So when I read this and when I heard him say this, I immediately thought of that scene from when he said, because he said something about, oh, you can probably think of a person like this, right? And when he said that, I immediately thought of that scene from The Dark Knight when he had the conversation with Alfred about the Joker. When he said, I have this the script pulled up here. So Bruce says, criminals aren't complicated, Alfred. Just have to figure out what he's after. And then Alfred replies, he's like, with respect, Master Wayne, perhaps this is a man that you don't fully understand either. A long time ago, I was in Burma. My friends and I were working for the local government. They were trying to buy the loyalty of tribal leaders by bribing them with precious stones. But their caravans were being raided in the forest north of Rangoon by a bandit. So we went looking for the stones. But in 6 months, we never met anybody who traded with him. One day I saw a child playing with a ruby the size of a tangerine. The bandit had been throwing them away. And then Bruce says, well, so why steal them? Well, because he thought it was good sport. Because some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn. And that's pretty much what the orcs kind of sort of are. Like, that's what they were within the D&D realm. And what they're doing is they're changing them to be something that they're not, because according to their logic, it's like this character in this game, the stuff that they're doing is so inconceivable that we have to rationalize the things that they're doing. And that was pretty much my take on that part there. So it's like that's not the case. The case is that yes, this is what they do. This is who they are. This is embedded in their DNA. You know, as per what Sargon put up, because he also put up like the orcs lore and what they are. So they're just he used the word specifically that they're intrinsically evil, and that it's what's the word I'm looking for?
Chaotic evil? Oh.
Congenital. I think it's congenital, where they're just naturally born evil. So yeah, it's two. There's two types of evils, I guess, where they're just like inherently evil, and then you have some people within the perspective of whatever side you're on, the person in opposition might be considered evil. Because like, you know, in Avengers Endgame, they were defending themselves against Thanos, but Thanos thought what he was doing was for a good cause, and even though we were siding with the Avengers or whatever, they were fighting for us. They were out there killing, you know, alien beings and whatnot. So it's like,
But like
you
very
know,
quickly about the Thanos thing, because I was
yeah.
going to
Go ahead.
mention that
I'm
as an
sorry.
example. It's correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a Marvel guy. Thanos was always evil in the comic.
In the
There
comics,
was no
yes.
nuance to him. He was just, I want to kill everyone. Why? Because I want to kill everyone and rule everyone.
No,
Yes,
he wanted
inherently he
to
was.
he wanted to be with death. So he went around on a killing spree pretty much to
Okay,
be
so but
with
he
her.
was a
Yeah.
bad guy. There was no
Yeah.
nuance. There was no balance. I'm looking
Yeah.
out for the ecosystem of the world.
Right.
Why can't we just have evil Thanos? Why did we have to have nuanced Thanos? Because we live in a world now where we just can't have evil people.
Well, that I don't. Okay, so that I didn't mind, right, Gunner, because it caused for an emotion towards that character, right? Like they could have had him either way, and I would have been fine. But it caused like an emotional connection, and it also caused, at least with me, conflicting thoughts, because what he was doing he felt was righteous. He's like, listen, I came from a planet where there was a lot of people, and we dealt with starvation. You know, there was a lot of like people weren't able to eat. There wasn't enough shelter. So the best course of action I felt was pretty much to remove half of the populace. And he's like, well, okay, well, that didn't happen. He proposed that to his people. It didn't happen. So that his planet was pretty much devoured in a sense,
Or,
right? So
okay, I don't have a problem with that, but it's not that deep. It
No,
shouldn't be
it's
that
not.
deep. It should be, I want
I
to put
and
the big heroes are fighting the big villain. It should literally just be that.
and that's what I was saying before, is that when you start to add these types of connections to the characters,
mm-hmm.
or yeah, to the characters in this fictional story, you're gonna open doors and can of worms that goes even deeper. Now you're just jumping down an unnecessary rabbit hole where kids back in the day playing D&D with the big books and their notepads and their dices and their little figures, no one was thinking about it like that. They were
Yeah.
just monsters.
The evil
That's it.
wizard wants to destroy the world, and he's made a deal with the orcs to kill the
Right.
kingdom of good guy. That's it.
Yeah, that makes
That's
a
That's it.
that's
that makes
So
a lot of
now
sense. That yeah.
now you want to humanize or human these fictional characters.
Humanize.
Okay, humanize these fictional characters. So now let's have a conversation. Let's go real deep in it now. You know, like
and it doesn't
let's
need to be all
invoke that.
that.
No,
It
But
really
I
doesn't,
agree
but I
with
but
know
you
Khan had
guys.
a point. I want to
Yeah, sorry
before
about
we
that.
lose that. Yeah.
No, it's okay. It's it's a multi-layered topic, so like it's easy to like kind of go off on a rant.
Yeah, I want to make sure everybody
Yeah,
gets a say. Yeah.
that's fair. But Esoteric actually hit on a lot of the points that I was gonna mention. And I'll just kind of reinforce some of that. So Sargon in the video talks about he takes the time to like, okay, let's look at it from the perspective of the woke or the people that want these changes, or whatever, who have this weird perspective, right? And he mentions, excuse me, I'm still recovering, so you'd have to excuse me. He talks about the predicates of the woke morality,
Yeah.
the conscientiousness of the self-determining. The morality is a rational construct, and all rational agents are fundamentally the
The
same.
same.
And basically, what that like boils down to is anybody with a desire is justified in a desire, and that desire or morality or like moral compass should be treated as the same as everybody else's moral compass. And so, you guys mentioned like Infinity War and Thanos and all that in the cinematic universe, and I put that down too in my thing because he also mentions conflict of morality.
Yeah.
That makes the most interesting story, which is true. And I put Civil War. The Marvel Civil War is a great story because it's like you can find yourself on either side. Like you can see the points of either side. Same with Infinity War, at least in the cinematic universe, where it's like you could kind of understand where Thanos is coming from. You may not necessarily agree, but you kind of get it, and so he becomes a more sympathetic enemy. And so they're trying to make the orcs that kind of enemy, which they're not designed to be that way. And going back to like the all rational agents are fundamentally the same is basically like saying that the orcs in the original lore of D&D, their desire to pillage, to grape, to conquer, and to dominate is the same as another race of character, let's just say humans or elves, as their desire to expand, to grow, to teach. These moralities are the same. And that's crazy. So
Yeah, because it's
that's
about
the
perspective.
problem. It's inherently flawed. It's like you can't, like anybody with any kind of morality, how could you ever relate? Like unless you're a psychopath, how can you ever look at the orcs' characteristics and their motivations and be like, yeah, that's the same. It's like, so that's that. That was to me answer your question from before, where you were trying to like kind of explore the other perspective of like, okay, let's take a look at how these people look at things. It's fucking wacky. It's like, Yu-Gi-Oh fucking his mind in the Millennium Puzzles, all the stairs are upside down. Like it doesn't make sense. It's like, what the fuck are we looking at? And that's why I think comparing the orcs to zombies made the most sense, because anybody who's watched the zombie movie, most zombie movies know, like, yeah, zombies are just bad. Like there's no justifying these creatures are dangerous and they will kill you. Period. There's no nuance. They are dangerous. They will kill you. Full stop. There's no reasoning with them. And so orcs are the same. They're just more intelligent because they can plan, they can strategize, they can use tools, things like that. So they're way more dangerous than zombies. But their core is the same. They're fucking evil. And same thing could be said about the Helldivers bugs or whatever. And there was that whole controversy where it's like,
I remember that.
Why
There
are we
was a
killing the
Derek
bugs?
doesn't
It's like,
seem to.
Oh, okay.
yeah. So that was a
Okay.
thing. So like there was, when Helldivers came out and it was pretty popular, there were bug sympathists.
So we
Yeah.
can't play anything then. We can't. So we can't monster hunt because the monsters are evil. And,
Don't worry. Don't worry.
And
Once
Peter's gonna
Wild
kick
comes
our
out-
asses.
Yeah.
What is going on
So-
here? Like
Exactly. And that's the core of the problem is that it's not about.
it's a slippery
and like
slope.
the whole. And I want to say this other point too. There's not a black person on this planet who buys into any of this shit. I don't
No.
believe it. There's no fucking way. I know a lot of black people. I will put money. I'll go out there and survey right now in the streets of New York. There's nobody who, when I show them a picture of an orc and be like, and I explain them, and they go, "So is this cultural appropriation? Do you feel offended?" They're gonna look at me like I'm crazy. It's like, what the fuck what are you trying to say?
That's actually from
Right.
Lord of the Rings.
They're
There's no
actually
shot.
gonna feel, yeah, they're gonna feel
They're
offended.
gonna feel offended, as they should.
Yeah,
Right. So the people who believe this are not black people. 100%. These are weird fucking like
everything else.
weird people who drink fucking
Boiling.
soy milk and shit. Like these are just weird people that like they're not in touch with reality at all. Just to make that clear. But damn, I kind of forgot. I lost my train of thought there. But whatever. I think I said the points that I wanted to say. So continue.
So like a quote that I took from him, that it's kind of like I think the crux of why these people have a problem with the whole orc situation is because the context of orcs being chaotic evil, inherently evil, there is no quality to them, is that this makes a world, where is it? This creates a world where racism can be heroic. And these people cannot cope with that because it fundamentally is. It is. It's like we are killing this race because they are bad. That is racism at its core.
But on the flip side, wouldn't the orcs be racist as well because they're killing all
The,
other
the
races
orcs are
because they
the
want
orcs
to
are
conquer?
racist against everyone. Yes, they want to kill everything. They want to grape everything. They want to conquer, and they want everything to be there.
Oh, so then
They're they.
they're not racist. They're actually all for equality because anybody can get it, even
I,
their own.
I guess so. I guess so. And this is the same. This is the same topic that they bring on 40k. So I'm a pretty big Warhammer 40k guy, and Warhammer also has orcs. Now the way Warhammer does orcs, I think they kind of I don't know if they thought about it, but there are no female orcs. The way orcs work in Warhammer is that they are essentially fungus. At the end of the day, orcs are fungus. When the I see your when the orc fungus lands on a planet, they basically mature into orcs. They're all green. They're male shaped. There are no female orcs. They were basically they're fungus for lack of a better word,
I can't.
and they have the same qualities. They're violent. They want to kill everyone, not just humans in the 40k universe. They want to kill fucking demons. They see a demon, I want to kill it. They see an elf, I want to kill it. They see another alien, I want to kill it. They see another orc, I want to kill it. It's simple and to the point, and that's why the orc in 40k is the perfect bad guy because all he wants to do is basically fight. That is his entire being. And I don't want to die because fighting for an orc means you stop moving, and they go find the next thing to fight. But they do this with 40k all the time. They bag on the Imperium of Man because the Imperium of Man in that world is inherently racist and xenophobic. If you are not a human, it is on sight. You die immediately. I don't want to get to know you. I don't want to hear your point of view. If you're an alien and have your own society, that shit sucks because it's not human, and I'm going to kill you. Simple and to the point.
So so
And
But
it's
that's what
okay.
drives the game. That's what
Yes, and
drives
it's
the media.
fine because I'm not going to read a 40k book and it's like, you know what? Those Asians need to die. All of them. No, because it's just a book. It's a fantasy world. I know we don't have spaceships and laser beams and fucking giant 7-foot men in power armor. Doesn't exist. It's a fantasy world. It's the same excuse that was used for GTA, how it's going to lead people to mass killings and it's going to make people want to kill prostitutes and murder cops. It's like, no, because it's a video game. I know those are bad things to do, and I will get thrown in prison if I do those. But in a video game, I can do it. It's fine. I can
but
differentiate.
it hasn't been done for the last 5 iterations. So why are y'all still trying to make this correlation? I just don't get it. It's just I wonder if D&D wasn't a game, would this argument still be as impactful? Like, what if it was just a show? What if it was just a movie? What if it was just a book? Would they still try to make this correlation that
If
orcs
it
were black people?
wasn't all of this crap that's invading various hobbies or medias like movies and books and stuff like this, it's happening because these mediums are popular.
Yes. Very
Hmm.
yes.
Period. If D&D was
Hmm.
still a niche, basement dweller weird gamer game that like nobody really knew about unless you were in that crowd, if it was still underground, nobody would care.
Yeah.
They care now because there's like this weird, I wouldn't say weird, but there's like this cultural nerd resurgence where like more people are getting into nerd culture things, whether it be video games, card games, tabletop games like D&D or whatever, comic books, etc.
Hmm.
These people want to insert themselves and their ideas and their way of thought into what's already been established. They are funguses. They are parasites. So that's why they're not doing it because we want to
Absolutely.
make this better. No, we're doing it because this is popular and we want to stamp. We want to be orcs and we want to conquer this space.
Yep.
And
And
They're the actual orcs, which is funny.
our favorite group of people, the corporation, they just want money. So if I have to make an orc a Mexican because somehow that's going to get more people to play D&D, they're going to do it because at the end of the day, they're there for the dollars.
yeah, but the
I
data.
get that, but come on, let's be serious here. The amount of people who's been playing D&D, who's gotten their children into D&D because the children see their parents play D&D, if that's the kind of family dynamic, d- it's The amount of people that's complaining, I cannot imagine. I don't have the numbers, I don't have the statistics, but I cannot imagine outweighs the number of players that was already content with the
shot.
content of the
Yeah.
game.
But
No
if it
shot.
raises the percentage like 0.1, 0.0001, it's just all about greed. It's just them wanting more. Hence why they made the adjustment to begin with. That
What it's going to do, we've talked about this on numerous podcasts. What this is going to do is it's going to kill your core fan base. They will leave, and then you will have nothing. Because the quote unquote modern gamer, modern tabletop enthusiast, they exist on Twitter, and I've said this multiple times. I'm going to say it again. They exist on Twitter, which is free. It doesn't cost them anything to spew their bullshit on Twitter, which I'm all for them. I think you should be allowed to do that. Have a stupid opinion so people can point and laugh at your stupid opinion and we move on, just like the old days. But that's why these people never cared about D&D. They don't want to get into D&D. D&D is like Warhammer. It takes a lot to get into. You have to invest a lot of money to get
A
into
lot of
D&D.
time. A
Yeah,
lot
and
of
it's
time.
time.
Like, one game in D&D isn't a 20-minute game.
no.
No.
Like the average attention span of today's adults. It's not a 20-minute
It take
game.
days or weeks to finish a
Yeah.
campaign.
Months even, depending on how big it is. And it's
Uh,
not a TikTok video. It's just not. It's not. And well, real quick, and it's just like this is what I hate about it because it as a guy, and I know Wolf can relate, as a guy who loves min-maxing his character and just like
Mm-hmm.
making the most powerful character you can, D&D's approach to just basically fucking neutering everything and making it across the board just ruins that.
That's what I was saying
Because
earlier. Yeah.
yeah, it was
Mm.
great to have half race characters. Like, oh, I get a little bit of the elf bonuses and a little bit of human bonuses, but not the best. But I get a little bit. Oh, great! Perfect example. Final Fantasy 11.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody here played it at some point. Final Fantasy
Mm-hmm.
11 had racial bonuses. Elves had higher magic and vitality.
Mm-hmm.
Galkas had higher strength. Tarus had high mind, and humans were basic
Uh,
across the board
yeah.
and Mithras had highest agility and evasion.
Right.
That was cool because it allowed me like, okay, I want to make a super crazy sneaky thief. Okay, I'm gonna pick a Mithra and make her a ninja, or I want to make a paladin. I'm gonna make an elven paladin. Now, could you make a Galka white mage that needed to
Like
heal
our
after
friend here.
500 out? Yes, you could, and that was okay. And at the end, okay, let's say Kong made it to level 100.
Listen, I was a Bard
But
ninja, not a white mage.
he was not going to make it to level 100.
No, okay,
We all know this.
let's say he did. It would even out at the end of the day, and Kong could be a bard healer Galka. He could make it work.
Yeah, to characters that were level 10 and had the HP for him to fully
Sure,
heal.
you could do it. You with armor and stats, you could do it.
But there's no way that character would be the equivalent to an elf,
Right.
or
No, and that
it
was
just
fine.
the stats just don't add up.
That was cool. I
Yeah,
never
that was
saw
a
that as like,
sacrifice you would have to just make. If you wanted to like get a piece of this pie, you would have to sacrifice whatever you had going
yeah,
here,
and I'm
you know?
fine with that's
Yeah.
part of the min max. But then we
Yeah.
go to Final Fantasy 14, the current and newest MMO. They removed all of it. There is no such
Mm-hmm.
thing as racial bonus anymore. So
No.
now an elf can be the best DPS, a Lalafell could be the best tank, a Rogadin can be the best healer. That's where we and it
Mm-hmm.
makes it boring. At that point, it's like what race looks cooler, which is fine for certain people. I'm a guy who likes aesthetically pleasing characters, but I also like the min-maxing aspect of it because it just added more depth to the game. When you water down the game to appeal to the broadest range of people, you just have watery soup and it tastes like shit. And
Yeah.
I'm
I
not
want to
playing 14 anymore.
throw this in here real quick
Throw away.
because he mentions it. This is like directly related to what you're saying. He said Sargon mentioned that there was like a official statement or whatever from whoever from Dungeons and Dragons. They go, we replace race with species and divorce the character traits from biological identity. That this is a safe, inclusive, thoughtful, and
Look at those
sensitive
words.
approach
Ugh.
to fantasy storytelling. Whenever I hear those words, I immediately check out. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, because those are the buzzwords. That's the call sign to their people. It's like We got this. We took it over. It's ours now. It's safe and inclusive. Again, these people aren't going to play D&D. They never were going to. They never will.
It's kind of like let's say the new Street Fighter comes out and you have all the characters, but they all have the same walk speeds. They all have the same inputs. They all have the same damage output. Like the game
It's
would not be
boring.
fun. It wouldn't
And
be
Street
fun at
Fighter's
all.
another one that gets it. Street Fighter. Why is Dalsim offensive against Indians? Fucking Gaio is a stereotype. Why does Gaio have to be a white male and represent the America? Why is Blanca a Brazilian representative? Are you saying all Brazilians are monkey people? They make the same statement in Street Fighter too. It's just like you give
And
these
none of
people
them
an
is
itch.
willing to learn crouching medium into
No,
Hadouken
they'll
combo.
never do. Even when Capcom says, "Look, we added an easy mode. All you gotta do is press forward and X, and you do a crazy move." It's like, whoa, you actually, bro, I'm broke. I have no money. That's why I'm on Twitter. I never had money to buy your game. What are you talking about? But you did that. That's really good. I'm glad for you. I'm not buying it though, but I'm glad you did that. Thanks for being an ally. And Capcom sits there with their thumb up their ass, and like, oh wow, why is our game doing poorly? I didn't foresee this.
Yeah.
Mm.
It just sucks because it just kills the medium for people. And I can hear Zeta Kaiser from the distance, like, this is why you gatekeep. And he's not wrong in that statement. This is why you gatekeep. If people gatekept D&D harder, orcs wouldn't be Mexicans now, because somehow that is so much better. So now the black people have been vindicated. Orcs don't look like them anymore. Now the Mexicans could be upset by it because
Okay,
it has a
so
sombrero.
let us make this perfectly clear for the audience that we don't associate the orcs with Mexicans either. It was just a phrase
That's
that
what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna say next. Is that so? Again, it goes back to what I was saying before on associating this any kind of fictional species to any kind of actual gender, race, species, whatever.
Mhm.
It opens the doors to the negative aspects of those to to come to the forefront. So me saying, okay, well, all right, I feel happy now. Nobody's comparing orcs to my black people, but I still have Mexican friends. So am I saying like, is that okay that I say that my Mexican friends is coming from a race of highly violent and arrogant monsters? Like you don't win either way. You don't, that argument is so bad, and it makes you, who you feel like you're advocating for the righteous person who or the minority, you're not. You're just showing who you truly are, which is another racist.
Yeah, these people are the biggest racists of all, and the thing that makes it worse is that
Oh
they come
God.
from a veil of understanding and caringness. I'd rather take the guy who calls me a racial slur any day of the week, because
Yeah.
at least I know where he's coming from. It's like, okay, I know where your stance is. I can
Hmm.
disengage. I can go somewhere else. But the quote unquote well-meaning person who's like, "Oh, you must be sad that orcs look like you. I'm gonna change that for you because I'm a good person."
You must be sad when I rip your jaw off your mouth for
And it's
saying
like,
that to me.
yeah, it's like, what are you talking about?
Spoken
Like,
like a true orc.
it's like, see, and they'll go to Wolf and go, see, this is why we have to change orcs. See, it reflects your violent nature, and we can't have that. So I'm gonna help you. Like, these people, they don't
Oh
get it.
God.
They don't get it. I truly think they don't get it.
Eventually, they're going to associate height with people too. They're gonna be like, oh well, these dwarves, they're midgets. They're pretty much.
Well, I was talking to Kong about this the other day. When what is it, Hogwarts Legacy came, people were dogging on that because freaking when they saw goblins in Hogwarts Legacy, these people thought they were Jewish. They were like, "Oh, goblins are clearly they have big noses, long ears, and they run the fast. Clearly, they're Jewish." Like,
Oh my gosh.
see, Wolf, you never thought that. You just saw a goblin.
I just saw
Look at the
Goblin.
goblin. That's
That's why
that's a
I'm so
normal person.
surprised by this.
That's a normal person. But these people, they saw Jew. So hey,
Wow. They,
this is where we currently are in our landscape. Like, this is the world we live in.
Oh my
And
God. Oh my God. That is overtly
that
racist because
is
because the goblins, they deal with a lot of money and whatnot.
Yes,
That's
they run the
exactly
banks
why they
and the Harry-
associate.
Yeah, but see, they don't see that. They just see it as like
Oh
it's
my
fucking
god.
it's nuts. I got nothing for it, but it's nuts. But I just wanted to throw that in.
Oh,
I didn't know it was gonna cause a laugh riot, but
so-
like
wow. Okay. Damn, my ribs hurt. Jesus
Mhm.
Christ. Oh man. Yeah, we're kind of over on time because somebody close us out because I can't compose
all right,
myself.
I did it, so I'll close it.
Oh,
All right,
my god.
ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you enjoyed our pretty kind of heavy topic tonight, make sure to drop a like, make sure to drop a follow, subscribe to our channel. We'd really appreciate if you can give us a like and a follow. Put a comment. Are you a longtime D&D player? Are you a longtime Warhammer player? Do you see this thing in your medium? Have you ever had somebody come up to you in real life and tell you your orc army is racist? If you have, please give us the story. I would love to read it. Yes. So, obviously, once again, if you enjoyed, like, comment, subscribe. We do this every Wednesday. We release a new episode every Wednesday. We kind of, not all our topics are as charged as this one. Some of them are more lighthearted. Some of them are just us bullshitting and shooting the shit. So we got a little bit of something for everybody.
Yeah.
Like I said, every Wednesday we release a new episode. Mr. Esoteric, who's the leader of our operations, he streams. He streams every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Is that correct?
Mondays and Fridays.
Monday, Friday. Sometimes
yeah.
he'll throw in a Wednesday.
Yeah.
He'll, you know, if he's liking a particular game a lot, he'll throw in a weekend stream. So you know, make sure to follow so you're notified and you're aware. His streams are always good. We got a nice little tight knit community. You'll probably see Kong every now and then. You'll probably see me every now and then. Wolf pops in every now and then. So you'll see us. We'll chat you up, and you know, it's always a good time.
Yep.
So with
All
that
my
being
fellow
said,
orcs, man. All my
yeah,
fellow
we
orcs.
we orc it up all day long. It's great. So anyway, once again, for the 5th time, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you in the next episode.
All right. Take care.